Waiting là identity to
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, you're welcome to sit up here too if you want to. We're very casual here.
All right,
we're going to go ahead and get started. So we are we are teaching from the book that His Holiness and Thupten Jinpa have wrote. It's the Science and Philosophy in the Indian Buddhist Classics. I don't know if I have a copy of it here. It's a volume on the mind, and we're in chapter 23, which is about mind training and meditation. And under the subheading, the last class we talked about hearing, thinking, and meditating, and mindfulness and introspection. And now we're going to talk about view, meditation, and conduct, and how that can be used to change to transform your mind. Geshe Lharampa may also give sort of a brief introduction. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for coming. And so today we're going to be talking about the topic view, meditation, and conduct. And so why are we talking about view, meditation, and conduct? Well, in our life, really, the main thing that affects the quality of life is how we think, our mind, how we view the world, the state of our mind. And when we talk about view, meditation, and conduct, what we're talking about is a method for transforming the mind. So the first of the three, the view, we can think of as wisdom. In just generally speaking, not even necessarily in the Buddhist terms, when we talk about wisdom, what we're talking about is a mind that's able to differentiate between what is good and what is bad. So in the previous class, there was a very good question that asked us, anger. Is anger ever good, right? We were talking about getting rid of anger. And so someone asked this question, is anger ever good? And from the Buddhist perspective, no, anger is never good. These afflictive emotions like anger, craving, jealousy, really, there's really nothing redeeming about them. And in fact, the only good quality about them from the purely Buddhist perspective is that we can get rid of them. So from the scientific perspective, of course, I think where this question was coming from is this idea that we need these emotions, right? We need anger, we need aversion. If something is harming us, to get rid of it, to stop it. And then if we need something to benefit us, the craving and desire is what motivates us to get it, right? So this, of course, from the scientific perspective, is sort of a very normal way of thinking about these emotions.
나서 드니 다 나중원이 신앙에 망아촌데 강을 징도 사리 만도 지담도 파이 개체 빨리 통하이 이음들이생이나 지담때 당점소 대티 덕이 자고 대지는 샘조르 카스나 같은 것이요.
밑에지 갑자기 루중 겨르바테 데 케르기 캔 말해데
아 맞아 그니 샘조나 팬튼 가다르티 연직스들
임마 말해데
마리 만도 지담도 파이 개체 빨리 통 아테 파치 고치마로 게 자스 인제시 잡자는
아 제가 얘기해요.
다테 연직스 나올 때시야 나지테 다 나중원이 시나 나초 dochata contre jedan nitil natsol ndomando ke dengal magoyare amapare ndagoyare ze kanye te tawani ni ngonze chego mare dili ngeni te ngonze chenye te ta mando chi tando pa isi on dipena natsol dengal ndo komando ya tang dengal go ndu ya jugni yon at ngemala lianin je pishirab ze at o tomate lego yore natsol
dengal shirab dengal so bin doba kariyane
ndangal goyare shandingal no paresha tezia tomani lego yore mugndo chaje da malevi ngeni ko tombo tela lianin je pishira tele gore sonta lianin je pishira tinga sogom ko chabar shira ndo chaje da leti
so the first thing that we have to really understand is the where is that quote? The first thing that we really have to understand in wisdom really the purpose of wisdom is to differentiate for us for what is going to help us and what is going to harm us, right? This is the purpose of what we call wisdom. Sherap in Tibetan is wisdom, is that you can see what is going to help us and what is going to harm us. And these afflictions like attachment and anger are not very good at this at all. In fact, that they don't operate that way. So really the first thing we need is the wisdom to be able to see what is going to help us and what is going to harm us.
아니 시럽들 소소는 높아 임바 고야 증원제 제소나 아니 좋아 디반쟁 그래서 다 시럽들인데 나라 높아리 세나 아니 시럽 마데반쟁 그래서 시럽 마데와 좋아 마디바 임마데와세 셈바 마키온 이즈니 컨트롤레 그래서
그 시럽 메나
나라 시럽들인데 나라 노송제 니원제 제그라 나라 노송제 셈바 마키 임마데와 티 니파탈레 그래서 Yemmadewatale on the Tanitsama check a draw on controversially like
so the sheriff Menang the check and the
Cambo shirap the Yondamon the Chianti on the National resident as Samba Maki by Jenny's over Samba Maki, which is Jenny control under this, landing a Yapochema, Sonsa, control in my Japan was
so the way that we could look at the way that we can see that anger and craving arise is that through wisdom we recognize or we understand something as being harmful or helpful to us. And if we see something as harmful to us, then we have what we call these like we exaggerate the quality of it, and then through this exaggeration of the quality of the thing that we don't want or that's harmful to us, then we generate anger. And you can say the same thing about craving. You think something is going to be helpful to you, you generate this exaggerated sort of view of it, and then you develop strong craving for it.
Natsol yonda yondin jeni ta penot tawani ni kelengo shirab la kelengo
initi gona kerengi thungi chodi di sebo yomare kanga di shirab gi thoknenga di khari yapo yore khari di dikja de yego chege
nature chikle yondi natso ngonde chegora shirab kande ngal goya rezi ngonde cheson til semba kapul legri tenin do chale shirab tugande dikjare lab son teni Samba Maki by Yemmadili. Control Grace.
You dig up to the share of Pinto Yomare, ding the Savoyomare. Dig up to the share of the Wanging, also the Mikiba Younger.
Marita, share up the Natsol Leanin Jag. They get the guy money that Shirab or Chabani Chadi or
okay. So if we don't have a correct view of the reality, then we don't properly understand what is going to harm us and what is going to hurt us. And so we think something is going to harm us and we exaggerate the quality and we get angry, or we think something is going to help us, we exaggerate the qualities about it and generate strong attachment. And then both of these things disturb the mind. They get the sort of the grasping or the aversion. And wisdom, the function of wisdom is really cutting through that and understanding what is actually going to help us and what is actually going to harm us.
Semba maki pala tini control nga yo zonsa ngatsu zopa goni na tikati semba maki pa macheni samjato na tijil control yung mare ze zondo.
So in the Bodhisattva's way of life, it talks about this, the importance of wisdom, in that through wisdom you can recognize the things that are going to disturb your mind, that are going to make you angry. And so when you can recognize that this thing is going to disturb my mind or make you angry, and you can recognize that it's an exaggeration, then you can apply an antidote like the practice of patience, or meditating on patience, or cultivating patience in a way that will stop that process from disturbing your mind. So generally speaking, in this view, meditation, and conduct, the view we can say is this idea of being able to differentiate what is good and what is bad, what is okay, what is not okay, what is going to help us and what is going to harm us. Of course, in the when we talk more deeply about Buddhist philosophy, we talk about the view of bodhicitta, we talk the view of emptiness, the view of impermanence, and these sort of more sort of subtle or profound ways of looking at this. But at the most basic level, really, this view is what is good for us and what is bad for us, and being able to differentiate those two. So just to take a simple example in our lives, of course, maybe we like to drink or we like to smoke cigarettes. And so, a proper understanding of view would be able to look at that and say, hey, this is not good for me. This is hurting my body. Really, really understanding and seeing the harm that these habits are doing to yourself, and recognizing that. And so that would be just a very simple way of understanding view here, or wisdom.
Jimbani pa gomze ate yongwa yo ta no du sa teni jimbani pa tele ngori ta tanga tamanton aramon buton komshile sa skili la woten sam chato mari tin nyan ta pa kali ya mi de montoni de na parishi on magwa sur le komshile yongori te gomre.
So in terms of the view or the wisdom, it's really just this examining and making a decision, understanding, like, for example, cigarettes. It's like really just recognizing and saying, yes, cigarettes are bad for me. This isn't where you're actually changing your behavior, your habits, right? So once you've made that determination, then through meditation, you sort of reinforce repeatedly over and over again that understanding, and you can slowly change your behavior. Of course, quitting something like smoking is very difficult. So you don't just decide to quit, right? You have to sort of recognize, understand that it's bad, and then repeatedly accustom your mind to reminding yourself about this understanding, and slowly you'll be able to change that behavior.
ta sem gnan is nyen ta pa shi gyam ni ta ngen tong me kan ngen tong me san tsu gyab jana parshini li ta zu pole yan jawa son tin tom ko ya chopa ze de at linga ka chopa tro ilin jawan ro ja.
So when we talk about conduct here, juba, what we're talking about, there's in Buddhism, there's actually, we can think of a conduct of body, speech, and mind, but what we're really talking about here is conduct of the body and the speech. And so through this process of the view and meditation, and through meditation, repeatedly reminding yourself, contemplating, reinforcing your understanding, and then eventually you're able to actually change your conduct. Right. In the conduct here, we could think of really just actions of body or speech. So in our example, this negative action of smoking.
So kandon do chena yakandu toma te ta ke cheni ta na chungo ne chena niji gomna yakare jala no pa chena ran le pen yo mar jala pen yo mar niji gomna yakare zini te ta che yore tel niji gomna ya ta chena te ta wari ni nyama ta pa le niji le sa lo tani ka te kom ni niji on de che on di ni pa shi kom de le on de te kom ri shi chembo lep sona kama te le linga ka kyo pa ta so le ngewan ro ni mi chu ke che she na yan jambo she ata ligu ko ni amna no pa me cheni ko rangem ka sem jawan ro ala tini lu zupol jawan ro ore ke ko pala ore no ta ko
이디갑스 디 gyopati rang신기 gyoro 저기래.
no no semba ya rin ti ko linga ko pa rangem din ger gere
So to make an example that's a little more sort of how in the Buddhist sort of perspective, like we would talk a lot about generating compassion, generating love, meditating on love and compassion, right? So in this context of view, meditation, and conduct, what we would do first is examine compassion, right? You would think about it. What are the benefits of compassion, right? What are the problems or benefits of hurting someone? You know, so do you believe that hurting someone is bad, right? So if you examine this idea of compassion, right? Hurting someone else, having ill will, the opposite of compassion, harms yourself and harms other people, right? If you don't believe that, then you don't go on to the other three. But if you decide, okay, yeah, I see this, I really believe this idea that ill will, the idea of harming other people, which is the opposite of compassion, harms other people, then okay, then I need to generate compassion, right? Which is the opposite of that. So that's the view. You've decided on the view. And then every day you meditate. And meditation here, just in the Buddhist perspective, doesn't have to be just sitting meditation. It's cultivation. It's really familiarizing your mind with this concept. So every day you think about these reasonings about why compassion is important. You know, you are reminding yourself, you're cultivating compassion habitually over and over again. And then slowly that will start to change your conduct, and you'll naturally become, you'll naturally be a kinder person, a gentler person. You'll naturally be, sort of more open and warm toward people.
Allah sa tindi de chiri ta gom kyo sam siti ta gom de ka sa kenye tu sang gom sam na le gom le wo ni ta go kyo sam na le gom le wo ta gom ziti ta yon chak gom ziti ya ta so jo gom la shik chen bo she ora tini ta ni pa gom ge shen son din na sam ba ta go gom ji chawa na ton te yon dem jibar chi pa je la zem de se lo ko chin chu ji shen ji tsu ser ta mo to je yon sam ba na ja pa mo to gom bi lam zeni Tanda go cho something.
Back gente tambola.
Dialog lendo. Anche telen dialog. Tam dur dina gom zediat ton de la yanda samlon jiat gom zegri. C'était concept japan yanda te jon mon bon yor.
So in the previous class we talked about listening contemplation and meditation, and in this class we're talking about view, meditation, and conduct, and these are both ways, sort of structures to change your mind. And in both of these they're talking about meditation, and of course the word meditation, the idea of meditation is very famous. We've all heard of meditation, I would imagine. And so what we're talking, and there are two main types of meditation in the Tibetan tradition. There is what we call placement meditation, which is sort of focused meditation where you're keeping your mind on an object. And there is analytical meditation where you're repeatedly contemplating and understanding an object. And here we're talking about the latter one. And there's a famous quote that says, okay, I don't think Adila Yomare got So basically, the quote says that what meditation is repeatedly over and over and over again familiarizing or habituating your mind with an idea. So it's the idea is that meditation in this sense is just this constant sort of repeating something until it becomes a habit, becomes ingrained.
So then it saben jogum tets ngotor china tai ko so jogum ko shom tets tan jogum ze diat sema mu pasila teni lolo chini ngi chot tawani ni majami ka kamanga de to na chete to na ni diatre tomata lazupo de tandel chi sheri yore ta namnan ke chu den den ze diat ni sha sangi number nan za jik tan ze ni tan dor dina nga so den da yawlo te tsam to ya nin de te tsam mawa ni chi gol kitum chani tani de lazupo te tan tambo tani che tani jabte ya trauma chini lazupo trauma de to na tani top to di ni ko ya ko yong gore tin da chap fa so ra so ta ja la pa den di manche sa de ja kan de sangi number nan chi tan te re zen de tin sari tani ngo te tsam pa mi mukta so chetan gom ja ti mukta so so
just to talk a little bit about what we call placement meditation or sort of concentration meditation is where this idea is that you're picking an object and you're maintaining a constant stable focus on that object. When you do that, there's teachings about how you should set your body because your mind will follow your body. So you can of course put your legs in the Vajra, the full lotus posture, that's great, or any kind of comfortable seating posture. The important thing is to sit up straight. You have your hands in your lap, like Geshe Lharampa was showing us with this posture there. You want to have your shoulders, relaxed and back. You don't want to be it's quite easy to do this, and so you want your shoulders relaxed and back, your back straight, your head just down just a little, your eyes a little open, and you want to look sort of toward your nose, basically, kind of a little bit down. And so if you think about your breath, you don't want to really try to make any special effort with your breath. You really should just let your breathing happen naturally, whatever's happening.
That's what those important dictator with the Tinjita, Tom Bodi Yanda Chena, Tichena, Yapo. Yes, Tinjini de Matona, and the Dini, so Tinikapoyona, Tinjina, and Rukuri, Gomtan Jamanday, or Nima Association, but Jita Mela, you can do in the Washington, and talk about
So there's lots of ways to sit. If you cannot sit in the full lotus or any kind of, whatever you're doing with your legs, you just need to be comfortable. If you could sit on a chair, that's totally fine. Lots of people do that. Jetson Milarepa, of course, you can see photos of him in kind of crazy meditation postures. I mean, it's really whatever works for you in terms of how your legs fit is fine.
That's what Tambo gom gaving the Lazipon the Soso Zaza Chicheni, and then go Musija on this Polishirachi Tomache Madoni, now Allegre.
Who kept
Oh, Tombo, Zipotia Pochi, and this Pocar Chakandu Shirasalo Mata, Gixomato, now Allegre.
So once you sort of set your body, then you don't have to, you just sort of let your body be at that point. You don't have to make a lot of effort to keep your body, in a particular posture. Just set your body well and just sort of relax.
Ani go muji gawala tombo soso la mupa te tembo chijagore. Mupa ze deata ta samlo tansa chijagore. Samlo tansa kari jana jugzeni lano chembo non jirumbo che song de chapar zo musi o marques. Ina ta manchesa Chala Chimbo Shata Shakaman, the Chinju Jakan, Chinju Rochi, Manchester Soso Undela to Yonker can set in it. Chinju Nembara, Yonker says in a Yonker Zeti, not so Hill Zero. Then you know what you could say, Dorjee Jani and no Sangi Kajani and Dorjee and Rochi, Tajika Puchinju, Chindika, Yonker can do and the Chitika Kariji, Yosani Sound. So in
the beginning, it's important not to, when we talk about the object of meditation, so now we're talking about what we're visualizing, we're doing a visualizing meditation here. There's many objects you can meditate on. In this example, we're talking about a visualized meditation. And in the beginning, it's important not to have a very try to visualize something really big. Actually, it's very good. There's an example in the Lamrim Chimmo where you meditate on like a mustard seed, a very bright white light, like the size of a mustard seed that's right there. And so you don't want it to try to make something very big. It's actually helpful to have sort of a small, bright thing. So why do we meditate on something right here? What is the benefit of this, right? In general, you can meditate on things, out in your visual field, of course. But the benefit of meditating on something here is you can't see it. So you are forced to use your sort of mental image, because this isn't something you actually can see directly. So in what we're trying to do here in terms of this visualization, the important thing is that you're really trying to have a mental image. And so in Buddhism, that you're not like hallucinating something in front of you, right? It's really this imaginary image. So in Buddhism, we talk about Wangshe and Yishe, so the mental consciousness and the sense consciousness. And sense consciousness is what we're normally apprehending. And so you're not trying to like hallucinate a mustard seed. You really are trying to strengthen your mental consciousness and have this sort of imagination, this visualization of a mustard seed. Or it's actually not a mustard seed, a bright light the size of a mustard seed. So there are people in the Lamrim Chimmo talks about this. There are people that will meditate, like they'll put an actual physical candle there or a lamp, and meditate on a physical candle. And in the Jetson Kappa, in the Lamrim Chimpo, the fault, according to Jetson Kappa, of that is that the light is coming from the candle, and it's just your physical sense powers, which isn't really actually doing you any good. You're trying to strengthen your mental sense powers, your imagination, right? So as long as you're just meditating on this external object, it's just sort of coming at you, and you're not doing much. So the goal is to really have this mental sense powered concentration that gets stronger. So as much, I was laughing because it's hard to find here. As much as possible, finding a place to meditate where that's very quiet is very helpful, right? Where you're not hearing a lot of things. It's quite hard to find, unfortunately, in this area. But really, any kind of external stimulation. So as much as possible, when you're starting to meditate, any kind of object of sensory apprehension, right? So anything that you can feel, like smell, like all of these kind of things, you want to reduce as much as possible when you're starting to meditate. So, of course, when you start this, we're not going to be very good at this, right? We're not going to have a very clear image, or we're not going to be able to stay on this idea this very long. But the thing is that you just do it as you're able. You just sort of, you start and you sit there, and as you're naturally able, that's great. It's important not to force it or to press or to really try too hard, because that isn't actually very helpful, really. You just want to just sort of begin the process and let it develop. Yeah, of course, absolutely. When we first start to meditate, we'll put our mind there, and then our mind is going to go here and there and around and all over the place. That, of course, is going to happen. So it's very helpful also if you can do it at the same time every day. If you can pick a time every day, 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning, and you just have a habit of doing it at that same time every day, is very helpful. And it can be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Again, you're not trying to push. You want this to develop naturally, but you want to do a little bit every day. And you want to be relaxed, right? You don't want to be tight, stressed. You don't want to be like trying too hard. You're not going, you're not going to the gym, right? You want to, he didn't say going to the gym. I added that there. You just want to be relaxed, right? So you want to just, as much as you're able to just relax and do this process, the better it will be.
Garam chu semia ko de ondi teni jeni gong parche yan parche ni pa tombo parche te shalon trondo ata go palagro ta ni pa parche ni pa te chima te pele yongre.
So of course, so over time, as we start, when you first start meditating, your mind's going to go all over the place. And if you're able to do this every day, slowly, and importantly doing it at the same time, having this pattern, then slowly your mind will stop going everywhere, and you'll start to have some aspect of stability on this object that you're meditating on. And so then as that develops, and you don't have this fault of excitement, which is the fault of your mind sort of just jumping around everywhere, and you develop some stability, then you'll start to notice the fault of dullness in the object.
Tati gong gom jamni mombo chi hakres tati gong la sona gom jamni te kupa chakre zeni te shen ma te kupa chando ti gong la ma huichin la katwa te ti te gom jamni kashi ko kupa ndo ma rupa chobo chando
Kupa tika sari
kupa zena tanga so lemba chando
ngaso dinang chin de te na di ngaso kupa chaga
jiwa gol gom jiri
kupa chaga
di korta ni jima kashi ti di gong te civil gom jani momo do ko so kashi tni chaga dos ni konsan chol ke cha di jiwa wang shon.
So if you do this over time, right, so you'll start to slowly your external senses will sort of turn down, and you'll have the ability to sort of stay stable on this object of meditation, this sort of little light that we're imagining right here, and it'll start to feel good. It'll sort of be a pleasant and nice sensation. But there's a risk here that if you stop there, if you do that and you just sort of stay in this place that actually is kind of a place of somewhat dullness, you can actually harm your mind. You actually can kind of make yourself stupid.
gom the non teaching ro sare te ti ka lo sem de yak sabo ka te chamu pa la sem sabo chini pe nga so nam je sem kam ta ma yo nam je nga so cham cham nyop ta cha den cham sem kam ta ma yo o teni ro chi le sem si to pa zen ka ti na gom ja ti teni ro chi sem kam ta ma ngoni gom ja ma to nyop to cha ne de ko sa ma
to si nga so ding nyop to china de cham cha kore
de cham cha ta yo ne ya sem yak sabo zo to na zo ma to ne cham cha na
so it's important. So you've gotten to this state where you're sort of relatively stable. You're not so distracted by the sensory objects, and you're staying sort of on this object of meditation right here. So the important thing to remember, so you don't make yourself stupid, is that you want to try to start then having clarity, right? And so if you develop this sort of pleasant dullness, this sort of like kind of you're sort of like zoning out, and you're still on the object, but it's sort of dull. You need to try to awaken your mind to sort of generate clarity and bring this clarity back. And if you're not able to do that, then stop meditating. If you can do that, if you can kind of sort of wake yourself up and generate clarity again, then you can keep going.
Also,
Ding ding many these machine jang or the la tong get the top bala.
Oh, go ma jane mato jane to pala reception jam. Ani sem ki pala tenis lipo yang de po cha ngo. Li shin yang de ore ta li sem nika gom ti ni pa li sem nika ki po chi ni pe gerimbo de to at ni chi le gre. Then na chu ngo ni jane de at mon de che.
So if you go through this process and you really are able to work with your mind and to reduce the excitement and develop some clarity and be able to have some stability on this object, then over time you'll develop this sort of serviceability or pliancy. There'll be a general happiness. You'll have sort of a blissful, happy feeling, and your body will also be relaxed and easy. It's sometimes translated as like serviceability, but it's like you're able then to meditate, and it feels good, right? To do this for a long time, and that's the point at which you then can really begin to use this mind to work with what we would work with in Buddhism.
Gomji Gyan Gyatan the Shisari Gyatan the Shinani, Rikore Matojen, Kyosum Besu Cherero.
The Gyatan
Kyosun Rochit in a Pandroni Chal Gumjab Samna. Yep, she said, oh.
The conso di
she said, was here.
She said, okay.
So Gumjab, she said, she can do it.
Take it.
She can do it.
Take it. So do you guys, Geshe was asking you a question. Do you think you'll go back to your house and meditate? Do you meditate at home? Is this something that you already do?
So this
is one general introduction to meditation. This is one way to understand and think about meditation. And so if you want to go home and do this, this would be really good.
Doje den chuten chila chansi samondo ti gon chansi ni chikin topa gomjam do gomjawa mase gomja chse chini tri pangi jom gomjam ta tin chita so thama gama ko gomya ko jam thama yimo shote tani chen luze yimma chiku tin chila chapi ni chi ti ku chade ne ka yama de sha ti ta ko control chi chi lan de 이 조파들 치치치를 줬다 당사. 그래서 배 지마신 니나지니 아케까지나 컨트롤 건데 거절을 건데 야자니야 쳐쳐요 말을.
So there's a story of a person who went to Bodh Gaya, which is where the Buddha is understood to have achieved enlightenment, and you might have seen the large temple. And so there in Bodh Gaya, you'll see that there are lots of people that go do prostrations. There's all these prostration boards all around it. And so there's a story of this person who was there among the prostrators, and he was there every day sitting on his prostration board meditating for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And everybody around him was like, wow, this guy, so what an amazing meditator, what an amazing meditator. And then one day somebody came by to clean and was like sweeping, and the guy that was sweeping sort of accidentally hit him And the guy that was meditating immediately got really angry at the guy and started like berating him. And then they're like, well, that kind of meditation is actually maybe not so helpful if you get angry like that. Maybe he wasn't meditating so well after all. So yeah, so I mean, you can sit there and you can make yourself peaceful by meditating, right? But if you're not actually changing your mind, and then you just then you get angry, and it's like you're meditating on anger, then of course what help was that meditation, right? So the story is about like you have to make sure you're actually doing meditation in a way that will improve your mind. Oh, somebody needs to mute themselves. Laura, is that you? Somebody needs to mute themselves. Okay. Why does this not show this again? Cancel anyone do that. Okay. So that. So this was just a brief introduction to talk about what we call placement meditation, or sort of concentration meditation. And so if you're able to do this every day, it can be very beneficial.
Jamba controlling Kinka Sentinel, so seems a local on Janita. Hanga Zopa Gomnichi, and the control, sending in Toma, telecom, Zopacom Lao.
So there are the two types of meditations. There's the concentration meditation or placement meditation, and what we call analytical meditation. And so the second type of meditation, analytical meditation, you can take the example of meditating on Subhagam. We can make the meditation meditating on patience. And so what we talk about in terms of like an example of meditating on patience is really just reminding yourselves of the faults of getting angry, and then just going about your day. And when people do things to you, when somebody does something that might get you angry, you remind yourself about the faults of anger, and you practice patience by not allowing yourself to get angry. And you do that repeatedly as you're going throughout your day. And that's an understanding of analytical meditation. So also we can think about meditating on compassion or love. And, likewise, compassion or love is when you see someone that's suffering. You see plenty of places, people here, you see lots of people that are suffering. You see people that are poor. You generate this desire for them to be happy, this just compassion for them. And you do this over and over again repeatedly. And you also remind yourself, right, okay, you try to reduce any feelings of ill will toward other people. And you just remember that, right, that practicing love, compassion, right, helps myself, it helps other people. So you remind yourself of the reasonings why compassion is very important.
Also, Catholic Tagore, Minkan Jawatan, Lopcha Jawatan, Mila Pesha Chia, Takala Chia, so Momboch check in the Yomar. And also, same kind of Samachi, Miguel Nopamache, Maze, and the same come Sama, Lapchat and Dua Milapa, Saulu Lapchat, the Kate, the Jacket on Chikichi, Zogonda, Niji, the Kensochi Chatuna.
So there are some people might say or might object, oh well, just meditating on compassion doesn't help people. You need to give people food, housing, clothes, send them to school, and all of these concrete things. And it's true that those are very good things to do, but we don't always have the ability to give these to all of those people, and we certainly can't give that to everyone, right? But what we can do is really work on our mind, and if we have a mind that's filled with love, if we have a mind that is at peace, we have a mind that is really meditating on things like love and compassion and patience, then whatever we do, we're going to make the people around us happier and helpful. And then if we have the ability to give them things like money or food or school, then that probably will make those gifts even more effective. So when we talk about love and compassion, oh crap. So if you have love and compassion, right, as much as you're able to cultivate that will help yourself. It will help other people. You can talk about it. You can really help other people understand the importance of it. That you're not going to see advertisements so much for love and compassion, and but it's really important to practice it and to recognize that it helps yourself, it helps other people, and you can try to help other people understand the importance of it.
Chiata yore mitaba jibiganya tiagumare mato. Mitaba zena karre zena matsu nimma rere kechi rere seke rere lo joan rode yores. Joa rode yon te sheva la nanchu nang te she kwa te karis. Kitso tawachim bashi. Kitso de atre nanchen mores. Joan rode ta chia de go mare cho te pecho matani de Chaso karma chini toman gajor na jinda mulile titso ta serize titso gormorize mobodo no mitap itu te shewore na so namkia so mitap indeshi ona chuche wala samlon korgorese mitap indeshi mena chuche asalo to mareze onde su titso ta chewore. So
from a Buddhist perspective, talking more sort of the kind of things we might meditate on also in Buddhism, we talk about meditating on things like impermanence and emptiness. And so what is impermanence? Impermanence is this idea that everything is always changing. There's nothing is ever staying the same for any length of time, just moment by moment. Everything is always changing, always changing, always changing. And what is one of the values of meditating on this is really understanding that you really have to sort of take advantage of every moment. That nothing is ever going to stay the same, and that you could all of your money, your wealth, your possessions, right? They're going to be exhausted. They're going to go away. They're not stable. They're not there, and you aren't as well. So you have to really meditate on impermanence, so you understand that nothing is staying the same. It's going to go away, and that we talk about that if you understand and meditate on impermanence, then you can begin to understand the Dharma. If you don't understand impermanence, if you don't meditate and understand impermanence, then there's really no way to understand the Dharma. So when we talk about the impermanence, like one of the most important things really is this idea of motivation. So like, for example, if you are at a job and you don't go to work for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, right? You're not going to get paid, right? So you're going to have this problem of not having money. So it's the same idea with Buddhism. If you don't practice, right? So if you have 1 day, 2 days, like today, I'm not going to practice. I'm not going to do any kind of meditation or study. Then the next day, oh, I'm not going to study. I'm not going to practice. And the next day, right? Well, nothing's going to happen. Just as in the job, you're not getting any money. You're not going to transform your mind at all, right? And so the importance of impermanence is really recognizing that, that the immediacy of what we have to do.
Lama kera chemochi roboyos. I just on national tomba ni shedding the decon de shechika. Tatikuran de she yengo mares. Manite, Pingol chun tangamaring it, Jolia shego mar. And Jiteko bobo killing Kachina Dayoba Killingora. Tomba ni sheti dame pakele. You got that. Tikoro Mani Nayaman draws in Laria.
So now we can talk about the idea of emptiness, and there's a story about His Holiness who was speaking with a Christian friend of his, I think another famous Christian teacher, and the Christian teacher was like, well, tell us what you have this idea of emptiness in Buddhism. What is this about? What are you doing? And he said, well, I don't know. Maybe that's not helpful for you because if you assert the idea of a creator God, then you assert the idea that people have this like solid sort of permanent sense of self, the Dayuba. So it's this idea of you have the kind of self that actually in Buddhism we're negating, we're saying doesn't exist. So it's a little difficult to His Holiness was saying it's so difficult to explain to you this because it contradicts your understanding.
Docha control Nagala so but touching the tombo is doing like Kyun songs at the Some Pazo, Mopazo, the Tamlam Yona Mena, Tomba Nicona Zoto, Shambi, Mepazo Itabio Mare, and Ichishiriore.
So in Buddhism, the importance of emptiness is the idea that we have all of these afflictions. We have, anger, attachment, craving, pride, jealousy, all of these afflictions. And in Buddhism, the only way to actually get rid of these afflictions is through the view of emptiness. The view of emptiness is what allows us to actually totally eradicate these negative afflictions. So basically, everyone in the world really believes and understands the importance of things like love, compassion, patience, right? So these are things that we should all really be. Whatever your background is, you can practice these things and you can cultivate these things. And it would be really wonderful if you would go home and do this in your life to try to cultivate love, compassion, patience. And so we're going to stop there. We have about 8 minutes for questions. If anyone has any questions. Please, if anyone has questions, speak up.
Yeah. As far as I understood, the two kinds of meditation that you said is samatha and vipassana.
Basically, yes.
Those terms are used in the Tibetan Buddhism, or they are using other terms?
Well, they don't say shamatha and vipassana because I think that's more Sanskrit, the jegom and jogom. But yeah, it's basically the same understanding. Kongichiwa di shamatha and vipassana di kengi di tanya di shingive di shine tang hatong jabu yore sire di shamatha vipassana. The jegom tang di jegom di jogom di jabu yore samagida. But so your question is, are they the same?
Is he using those terms or are you using other terms? And why are you not using
them? I don't use those terms because I'm translating from Tibetan, and the Tibetan it's more descriptive to say like placement meditation and analytical meditation. And the kongitiwa di karichininga the placement meditation the analytical meditation gegyo chegyore the karichininga the vipassana tang shamatha lapki me kongichiwa dinjininga kong Because to me, it's more descriptive to use the word, that the translation of the words that Tibetans use, because it's more descriptive of the way that Tibetan tradition actually thinks. Right? If I say Vipassana, if I say shamatha and Vipassana to a group of people, many people have no idea what I'm talking about, or might be thinking about a different tradition where the understanding is slightly different.
Tibetan people use it or not?
They don't know Sanskrit in general. No. Shamatha Vipassana
Te lau mari nga tsu ta kenjo ko gomzea ta jala ko gomzea ni ore kenjo ko gomche na ta kitare nga tsu chamba ta ni je la so pa ni ba ta pa sa ma ta ni ro de ta ke pi gom da ni tombo gom ta sha ta job pi gom re ta tombo ta.
Yeah, they don't use those terms. What he said is, and we talk about like placement meditation and analytical meditation, and the analytical meditation being this idea of practicing every day like love and compassion and these concepts, right?
Jalak gomze ti tenja mari tambo ta ki gom ja nga to jane tom ro yo ra jane tom ro ti jane mu pa ta ro jane yamba la ti kan ni yo ke pa che to ba teli che chi le tel la tong ze mu pa chi le tenjem bi ngan ke pa che ta tong ze ho re tel ya jala ni ze te ke gom cha ka yo.
There are these concepts of shine, which you could translate as shamatha and sometimes is, and platong, which probably is better translated as special insight, but sometimes people translate it as vipassana. And in the tradition, it has a very specific meaning. Once you have a very, very stable mind, that you have attained what would be shine or shamatha. In that mind, you're able to take your object and understand the qualities of that object without disturbing that extreme concentration, then that would be sort of what we'd understand as special insight and the union of special insight in shamatha. So, for example, in the meditation where we were imagining this sort of really bright light, if you're able to, while you're maintaining focus on this really bright light, understand the qualities like the impermanence or the emptiness or these different qualities of this meditation without disturbing the concentration, then you could say that's hatong or special insights. He's not sure if that's helpful for your question, but yeah. Anyone else? Questions? Yeah, sure.
The dullness feeling.
The
dullness feeling.
Dullness, yeah, okay.
So how can you know when you feel that?
Chingwa. 네. 성화소도 이검게도 칭월랍나? 칸데스 가서도 칭월데 랩도 나디 잠샤거리. 칸데스 하고기랬어.
Taku nga tsu gom yap de ti so te mu patal de ti kale ta da te pa nyop to chayon semba te nyop ta cha ko samlo ta sa tu chi shar de ya la chi semba ta ma nyop to nda chani ku ki samlo ta sa ta sa bon ro chuni me cha o te ti ya sam cha gore ta la yo mara ta sa bo che gore la o ti ya chi ka man cha za cha ta ngan tam ro de ni so te la ti zer la ta ke pa che ni lo ta la xinjiang la gre yu ki la care par canal care cha care ta ja par wo ja cha care wa la mo chi chi wa
oh
te so za te ya da za che gore ya te ma tom ne ta che ja ja.
So you don't necessarily have to stop. The way what you have to watch out for is this idea that you've got some clarity, right? At this point, you've generated some clarity, in the visualization, in the stability, and you're watching out for a mind that's sort of getting bored, and the clarity is getting dull, right? This sort of sense of dullness and this kind of boredom in your mind. You're sort of losing focus. You're watching out for that, and you don't necessarily have to stop. But then at that point, you want to sort of enliven your mind again, if you can, and bring back this sense of sort of clarity to it. That we were looking for. There's a very canonical photo of the elephant and the rabbit and the sort of stages of meditation. And there's the metal rod that represents introspection, and introspection is the aspect of the mind that's watching for that quality to see if you're becoming dull, and then to enliven it. Does that answer your question? Yeah. It's hard at first until you get some experience to even notice the dullness, because your mind is everywhere anyway. That's my experience. Anyone else? Anybody? Okay. If there is no questions. Oh.
Well, I do have a question, but I'm struggling on how I wish to word it. I understand that you have a value of turning anger into compassion and love, and patience. I'm wondering about if there's any circumstances where you feel anger may be needed, whether that's to protect a loved one, whether that is.
Yeah, we had this exact same question last week. I'll ask him again and we can talk about it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay. The ngumagi the tamsam the gaprela the control the pinto yure the mission so the mission the sung the so gyagi chedu the control pinto yure do.
Not you only chena me by shaggy parasite. Not so only Johnny chena so check on the language Pishira Latingo and so no can do Mando Patando Pala, Ketchup, Tombo Targetango, and then controller, when Rina Mandrina, Manchester co Mandric actually more than Chenico, Yota Lion, or raise a Nishi, or Chungonichina, consent of Pepina, so unions at the language Pishira Latingo, Chabal in the race.
The Buddhist answer is no. The Buddhist answer is essentially that anger is never useful. If you actually want to help someone and protect someone, what you need is the wisdom that's able to properly identify what is good and what is bad, what is helpful and what isn't. That wisdom of being able to identify things correctly is what you can actually help people with. And so in that sense, from the Buddhist perspective, anger is never helpful.
That is your choate yapo that's how no mambo answer tango sare. You choate she chembole was a chaland in natural pengri, sambal samlut. Nachung is in a pengio marize or a tinicor socale, takitare market, touch
but it's important for you to really check this out for yourselves, right? I mean, you don't just believe the Buddha, right? Really look, does craving and anger help me or not? Is it really helpful or not? The Buddhist answer is no, ultimately it's not. But you have to really go out and examine your mind and examine situations for yourself and decide.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for coming.
Yeah. And then doing Saro. Okay.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
O Eloy vai ter um choque de realidade com o Marcelo.
sofrimento é grande. É tão grande que nós não temos ideia o quanto que é grande.
Olá, bom dia. Atenção, passageiro voltando, destino a Guarulhos e conexões do LA 4661, sejam bem-vindos. Informamos que a aeronave que fará o seu voo já se encontra em solo em aproximadamente 3 minutos da início do parque. Pedimos que não façam fila até que seu grupo seja anunciado. E peço sua atenção com documentos digitais. Não serão aceitos cópias e prints, mesmo que o pessoal tenha code. Se for fazer uso de documento eletrônico, abra diretamente pelo aplicativo Block ou na CNH. Bolsas e mochilas devem ser alocadas embaixo do banco à sua frente, deixando o espaço de linha apenas para bagagem com rodinhas. Se for fazer uso de cartão de embarque pelo celular, deixe a sua tela com brilho máximo. Pela sua atenção, obrigada. Sua atenção, passageiros do metro, exatamente destino a Guarulhos. Estamos lembrando que os passageiros com mais de 30 anos têm direito apenas um habitante. E as seguidas passageiros que têm alguma necessidade especial. E passageiros que viajam com crianças menores de 2 anos. Os demais passageiros devem esperar a chamada de 5